9. Tuna casserole. This was the Friday night dinner in a generation of homes, especially where meat came off the table. Cook egg noodles and drain them. Mix with a can of cream of mushroom soup, a splash of milk, a can of drained tuna, and a handful of frozen peas. Pour it into a casserole dish. Top with crushed potato chips and bake until bubbly and golden on top. A can of tuna cost 49 cents. A can of cream of mushroom soup cost 17 cents. The noodles were pennies. Together they made a creamy accroissement, crunchy topped supper that fed a family of 5. The children fought over the chip topping. The dish appeared at every church potluck from Minnesota to Maine. It was cheap, fast, and deeply comforting. 8. City chicken. This was the Depression-era trick that the 1970s kept alive. Cubes of cheap pork and veal threaded onto skewers, breaded and fried to look like chicken legs. It contained no chicken at all. Cube pork shoulder and veal. Thread them onto wooden skewers. Roll them in seasoned flour or breadcrumbs and brown them hard in a skillet. Then add a little broth. Cover and simmer until the meat is fork tender. The result looked like a fried chicken leg and cost half as much. City chicken appeared on tables in Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Detroit, and Buffalo, cities where Eastern European immigrants had learned to make something that looked like a luxury from the cheapest cuts the butcher sold. 7. Fried bologna sandwiches. This was the working class lunch that became a dinner, and it proved that a slice of bologna and a hot skillet could make something far better than its ingredients. Slice bologna thick, the real kind from the deli counter if you could afford it, the pre-packaged kind if you could not. Cut a slit from the center to the edge so it would not curl. Fry it in a dry skillet until the edges go brown and crisp and the center bubbles up. Lay it on white bread with yellow mustard. Some families added a slice of American cheese. Some added a fried egg. All of them ate it over the kitchen sink or at the table with a glass of whole milk. Bologna was cheap. A whole package cost under $1. Frying, it turned it into something crispy, salty, and deeply satisfying. This was the dinner that teenagers made for themselves when both parents were working late, and it was the dinner that carried generations of factory families through the leanest weeks. 6. Bean and cheese burritos. This was the Southwestern cheap dinner that spread across the country as more American families learned that a can of refried beans, a stack of flour tortillas, and a block of cheddar could feed a crowd for almost nothing. Warm a can of refried beans, warm flour tortillas on a dry skillet. Spread beans down the center of each tortilla, top with shredded cheddar, and roll them tight. Some families fried the rolled burritos in a little oil to make them crispy. Some served them with salsa or sour cream if the budget allowed. A can of beans cost a quarter. Tortillas cost pennies each. A block of cheddar cost $1. Together, they made a dozen burritos for under $2. This was cheap, filling, and deeply satisfying food that asked nothing of the cook but assembly. Here is what we actually lost when these dinners went quiet. We lost more than the recipes. We lost the pantry knowledge that made them possible. The 1970s kitchen kept a running inventory: a bag of flour, a can of shortening, dried beans, rice, cornmeal, potatoes, onions, a few cans of tomatoes, a jar of peanut butter. From those staples, a cook could produce 20 different meals without setting foot in a grocery store. That pantry is gone now. We replaced it with refrigerators full of perishable ingredients and counters full of appliances and a culture of cooking that requires a recipe for everything. The 1970s cook did not need a recipe for potato soup. She had made it 100 times. She knew the feel of the right consistency, the color of the roux when it was ready, the exact moment to add the milk. We did not just lose cheap dinners. We lost the way of feeding the people we love from nothing but flour, fat, and memory. The countdown continues. 5. Spaghetti with butter and garlic. This was the dinner that Italian-American grandmothers made when the cupboard was bare and the children were hungry, and it cost less than $1 to feed the whole table. Boil a pound of spaghetti until al dente. While it cooks, warm olive oil or melted butter in a small pan with sliced garlic, cooked just until it turns golden and fragrant. Do not let it burn. Toss the hot spaghetti with the garlic oil, salt, and a shower of grated Parmesan if you had it. Red pepper flakes if you had those too. The pasta was slick with butter and fragrant with garlic. Every strand carried the flavor. It was the simplest dinner in the Italian kitchen, and it was the one children remembered for the rest of their lives. A pound of spaghetti cost 29 cents. Garlic cost pennies. A meal for 6 came in under $1. 4 biscuits and gravy. This was the Southern breakfast that became a cheap dinner, and it turned flour, milk, and sausage drippings into one of the most deeply satisfying plates in American cooking. Make biscuits from flour, shortening, buttermilk, and salt. Bake them until tall and golden. While they bake brown breakfast sausage in a skillet, stir flour into the sausage and its rendered fat. Cook until the flour turns golden. Pour in milk slowly, stirring constantly until it thickens into a creamy, peppery gravy. Split the biscuits and ladle the gravy over them. The biscuits were flaky and tender. The gravy was rich, peppery, and full of sausage crumbles. The whole plate cost maybe $1 in 1978. It filled stomachs for hours, and it was the meal that working men requested more than any other because it tasted like a Saturday morning even when it was a Wednesday night. 3. Chicken and dumplings. This was the dinner that turned a single chicken into a feast, and it proved that the cheapest cuts of meat cooked long and slow produced the deepest flavor. Simmer a whole chicken or chicken pieces in water with onion, celery, carrot, salt, and pepper until the meat falls from the bone. Pull the meat off and return it to the pot. Drop spoonfuls of simple dumpling dough made from flour, shortening, and milk directly into the simmering broth. Cover and cook without lifting the lid for 15 minutes until the dumplings puff up and cook through. The dumplings were soft and pillowy on top and slick from the broth underneath. The chicken was tender. The broth was golden and rich. A whole chicken cost under $2 in the 1970s. It fed a family of 6 with leftovers. Chicken and dumplings was Sunday dinner for families who could not afford a roast. It was comfort in a bowl, made from patience and almost nothing else. 2. Red beans and rice. This was the Monday dinner of Louisiana, the meal that simmered while the laundry was being done, and it turned a pound of dried red beans and a ham bone into something that tasted like a celebration. Soak dried red beans overnight. Drain them and put them in a heavy pot with the ham bone from Sunday, an onion, a green pepper, celery, garlic, a bay leaf, salt, and enough water to cover. Simmer for 2 or 3 hours until the beans are creamy and the liquid has thickened into a rich, smoky gravy. Mash some of the beans against the side of the pot to thicken it further. Serve over white rice with hot sauce on the side. The beans cost a quarter. The ham bone was free. The rice cost pennies. Together they made a pot of food that stretched across Monday dinner and Tuesday lunch without complaint. Red beans and rice was the meal that proved you did not need money to eat well. You needed time, a bone, and the knowledge of how to use it. 1. Pinto beans and cornbread. Here is the one, the dinner that simmered on back burners from West Virginia to Oregon. In mining towns and mill villages and farmhouse kitchens, the meal that a single pound of dried beans and a pan of cornbread could put on the table for under $1, and everyone at that table left full. Soak a pound of pinto beans overnight. Drain them and put them in a heavy pot with a piece of salt pork or a ham hock, an onion quartered, and enough water to cover by 2 inches. Bring to a boil, then drop to the lowest simmer. Cover and leave it alone for 3 hours. Do not stir too much. Let the beans break down slowly until the liquid turns into a thick, brown, savory pot liquor. While the beans finish, make cornbread, yellow cornmeal, flour, an egg, buttermilk, a little oil or bacon fat. Bake it in a hot cast iron skillet until the top is golden and the edges are crisp and pulling away from the pan. Serve the beans in deep bowls with a square of cornbread on the side or crumbled right in. The beans were creamy and smoky. The cornbread was crumbly and tender and soaked up the pot liquor without dissolving. A dash of hot sauce, a slice of raw onion on the side if you had it. This was the dinner of working America. Coal miners ate it. Textile workers ate it. Farmers ate it. Families who had nothing but a bag of beans and a bag of cornmeal ate it, and it kept them standing. It cost maybe 80 cents to feed 6 people in 1975. It required no meat except a scrap of salt pork so small it barely counted. Pinto beans and cornbread was not a recipe. It was a lifeline, and it sustained more American families through more hard years than any dish on this list. We did not lose pinto beans and cornbread because it stopped working. We lost it because we stopped believing that a meal that cost less than $1 could be worth making, and we were wrong about that. Take a trip down memory lane and hit that subscribe button.